Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lance Corporal Norman Warwick. We warmly welcome the family of Sergeant Walter Douglas Scott, whose story will be told shortly. This evening, we are pleased to welcome the Defence Widows Group to the Last Post ceremony. The group is a subgroup of the ACT chapter of the Defence Force Welfare Association. It was established in 1981 and its focus is on providing mutual support and friendship through an established network of defence widows residing in the ACT. It is an inclusive group, the only criterion for membership being that a partner donned a military uniform in the service of their country. This evening, we also warmly welcome Major Joshua Dorpa, Director General, National Intelligence Organisation, Papua New Guinea, and representatives from the United States Space Force delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family, visitors to the memorial, and students on behalf of St Mary MacKillop Primary School, visiting from South Penrith, New South Wales. Australia's Federation Guard is the tri-service ceremonial unit of the Australian Defence Force. They provide a ceremonial presence at civil and military events and during visits to Australia by foreign dignitaries. The Guard will now dismount the catafalque party from the tomb of the unknown Australian soldier. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us during war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Sergeant Walter Douglas Scott. Walter Scott was born on the 29th of October 1924 in the Victorian town of Rochester. He was the youngest son born to Walter and Rochelle Scott. Shortly after Walter's birth, the Scott family moved to Sydney. Walter attended Balmain Commercial College and East Sydney Technical College before spending 3 years as a plumbing apprentice with A. Thompson of Balmain. Walter was also an experienced mechanic, having worked in his father's garage from the age of 14. Walter Scott joined the Royal Australian Air Force Reserve on the 29th of October 1942 at No. 2 Recruiting Centre in Woolloomooloo, New South Wales. Less than a month after joining the RAAF Reserve, Scott enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force at Woolloomooloo. He was mustered as a technical trainee with the rank of aircraftman and sent to No. 1 Bombing and Gunnery School on the far north coast of New South Wales to begin his training. Known by his mates as Scotty, he spent the next year training in Australia, passing technical, armament and flying boat gunnery courses. Re-mustered as an armourer in May 1943, he passed his examinations in June and was promoted to leading aircraftman in October before qualifying for his Air Gunner's badge in November. His examination report noted that he had passed with excellent exam results and was a keen and energetic recruit. In September 1943, he was charged with disobey orders and confined to barracks for 3 days as punishment. In early 1944, Scott was posted to No. 3 Operational Training Unit at Rathmines in New South Wales. Operational training units were the final stage of training for aircrew before they were assigned to an operational unit. No. 3 OTU was a dedicated seaplane and flying boat training unit which prepared aircrew for service in Catalinas. These aircraft, which could fly long hours and low altitude at a slow pace, were crucial to Allied air operations in the Pacific, particularly mine laying. Scott's training with No. 3 OTU was interrupted twice in early 1944. Firstly, for a brief stint in hospital for an unspecified illness, and then to undertake another armourer's course. He was appointed sergeant on the 9th of June 1944, and on the 1st of July was transferred to No. 20 Squadron of the Royal Australian Air Force at Cairns. No. 20 Squadron, equipped with Catalina aircraft and Empire flying boats, was tasked with conducting extensive seaward patrols and reconnaissance, along with performing night attacks, mine placements and supply drops to Allied coast watchers. Shortly after Scott joined No. 20 Squadron, it moved from Cairns to Darwin, tasked with flying sorties over Banker Strait, the Celebes and Java. Scott flew his first operational sortie on the 16th of August 1944. Between that day and early March 1945, he flew 20 sorties, a combined total of 416 operational hours. 1st of March, Scott's Catalina was one of several aircraft detached for temporary overseas service, leaving the airfield in Darwin for Jindamock Island in the Philippines. From there, the Catalinas flew to Lingayen Gulf in the Philippines to undertake mine-laying operations in the Pescador Islands or outside Tainan in Taiwan, then known as Formosa. Although the crews faced bad weather, no enemy air or sea craft was spotted during the operation. While the other aircraft returned from the mission successfully on the night of the 7th of March, Catalina A24203, under the command of Pilot Officer Ross Schultz, failed to return. One of the 9 men on board was Sergeant Walter Scott, who was acting as armourer for the aircraft. The following months were anxious for the families of the aircrew. The RAAF Searcher Organisation and US authorities carried out comprehensive searches of the Philippines, the Pescador Islands and the coast of Taiwan throughout 1946. With no sign of the aircraft and with interrogations of Japanese personnel and documents proving fruitless, it was determined that the aircraft had likely crashed into the sea on the evening of 7th March 1945 and that all crew members failed to survive. Sergeant Walter Scott was 20 years old. As his remains were never recovered, Walter is commemorated on Labuan Memorial in Malaysia, alongside almost 3,000 Commonwealth casualties who died fighting in the Pacific and have no known grave. His name is also listed on the roll of honour on my left, among almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Sergeant Walter Douglas Scott, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support throughout the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.